The cloud.
Good, happy Friday, and welcome back to Girl Street Journal, the show where we treat business as seriously as pop culture. Jen, are you excited for the stories today?
I cannot wait. I am so excited to dive right in. My first story is something that we both have a little bit of experience with. It is all about online dating. So, Bumble, which is such a big, or was such a big dating app. Like when I was dating, it was just up and coming, it was one of the new ones. Bumble is looking to actually sell. The company has been working with investment
Wow.
bankers to explore a sale after years of slow growth. And here's the crazy part: when
Thanks.
Bumble first sold in 2021, it sold for $7 billion. Okay? Which is crazy because A, it was never like the dominant
Oh,
dating platform. It was kind of like, I'd say, top three.
yeah.
But what's even crazier is it sold for 7 billion in 2021, but now it's worth around 388 million, which is a drop of more than 94%. So it's gone down so much. And what I find to be the craziest about this story is back in 2021, I wasn't on the app anymore, but it was mostly free. Maybe
Sure.
there was got to keep your options open as a married woman. It was mostly free. Like maybe they had one or two upsells, but now since then in 2026, I was looking up how many upsells they have. There are upsells for literally everything. Like, yeah, you can pay a couple dollars to boost. You can pay something called passport mode where you're able to change your location and swipe in that city before you get there. There's incognito mode where you can see other people's profiles. Like, there's literally probably 25 paid features now. And the fact that they're worth less than they were when they sold without all of this revenue and income shows an overall decline in the world of dating. What do you think?
I think it's really, Whitney Wolfe Herd, the founder, she had this amazing come up story. She was part of Tinder. She was dating one of the Tinder founders. They were co-founders together. They had a falling out. She made accusations of sexual harassment with other founders. And then she went and started this business that was even bigger than Tinder, where the control was in the hands of women who had to message first. So it makes me really sad, but I just want to say 388 million is still a ton of money. And that's the problem is like if you do really well, then everyone's like, well, it's not 7 billion, but like 388, but that I'm sure most of that has been resold and stuff, and she raised a ton of money. I don't think that that's like going into her pocket, but when you are the founder, that's what everyone thinks of. Mm, the one thing that you said that I thought was really interesting is what's up with this incognito mode? Like, there's no way that that exists except for people that are cheating, correct? Like, why else would
Right,
that
like
be a
well,
feature?
it shows you can view someone's profile without them seeing you. So it's a little less creepy. It's like if I'm on the app and I want to check out someone's profile without them seeing that I looked at their profile 75 times like a crazy stalker, you can go incognito so they can't see that you viewed their profile 75 times.
I feel like you use it to catch a cheater then.
That's true.
You're,
You know
oh,
what
I
I
think my
think
husband.
you know what I think is so interesting is like when people are, at least when like I was a little bit younger, when people are building their first business, their first app, usually they look at dating because dating is such a huge problem that takes a lot of different things to fix. So a lot of people start dating apps as their first business, their first app. Like literally you talk to anyone who's a founder, like one of their first ideas was a dating app. But I don't think in 2026 dating apps are what they used to be. This article said that Gen Z has a lot of dating app fatigue, and I think that's why these apps are declining. But I've noticed, and I don't know if you've seen this, is like Gen Z is not going online anymore for dating. They're going in person. So there's a huge shift from like swiping on your phone to these in-person singles parties. I know like 5 different people in New York City who throw these in-person really cool singles parties. There's someone named Liv Schreiber. She's an influencer. She throws these parties called Hot and Single where she rents out these bars and has like really cool single people coming to these things. Like back in the day when we were dating, you never went to an in-person single event. They were creepy. Like I went to some and I would never ever go back, but now it's actually what the trend is. Matchmakers are becoming more of a trend. So there's a huge shift in where the money's going, and I actually think these people who are throwing these in-person parties are going to start making a lot of money versus these dating apps that are just not cutting it anymore.
Did you ever? Did you ever go to a speed dating event? Because
Of course.
I went to a speed dating event, of course. I feel like, we both met our husbands on online dating. So that's the other thing is like Whitney has, with her app, she's like changed the course of humanity because she's created relationships that wouldn't have existed otherwise. And like children from those relationships and like just the course of life. Like that's what I feel like dating apps are like somewhat of the most influential apps you can start because you can change the entire world by who you bring together. I remember I always think about like the algorithm on OkCupid is like why kids exist. Like it's wild to think
It's
about.
so true. Yesterday we were at dinner, and this is interesting. And this girl was sitting next to us at a table, and she was waiting. And then this other girl came over to her and was like, "Hey, it's so good to finally meet you in person after chatting on Bumble BFF for so long." So, Bumble BFF is another part of the app. So is Bumble Business, where I guess you can match with other founders. But those don't bring in as much revenue. They're kind of like B stories to the overall business. But like, yeah, you're right. Like these apps are powerful. I just think if you're a founder, if you're looking to get into the dating industry with a business, I would stray away from the app side of it and think of something a little bit more innovative.
Yeah, completely agree. And also, when I was starting my podcasting company, I got advice from like someone that worked with one of my investors. His job was like to talk to the founders that she'd invested in. And he was like, I know you think right now that like your competition is like these five other companies, but your competition is actually market effects and it will affect all of you at once. And I feel like over at Tinder, they're probably, I don't think they're celebrating that this Bumble thing is so down because with all the effects that are happening to Bumble are happening to every other dating app. It's like at the end of the day, everyone's competition is market trends. It's really not your competitors.
No, and I think with in-person events, I'm seeing things where people are coming together based on interests. So run clubs are huge, but run clubs are also dating events too. And then there's events for people who like certain things. So I think people want to everyone's like, oh, if you don't do a dating app, go somewhere where you have a hobby and you'll meet someone at your hobby. But like, that's not possible. Like, first of all, who has a hobby? And second of all, if my hobby is Pilates, I'm not meeting a guy at Pilates. So like, these in-person events I think are so powerful because they're curated around activities and things people like to do, and they're making like a ton of money because you can throw one of these singles parties at a bar, rent out the bar, and then you charge $80, $90 a ticket. You're making really good money that way.
Also calling that person that that's calling it hot and single, like such a great name.
It's
Like
amazing.
anything hot is like I'm interested.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Meta.
Ooh.
Now, anyone? Okay, here's what happened. About a year and a half ago, a book came out called Careless People. Careless People was written by a woman named Sarah Wynne Williams. She wrote a memoir about her time at Facebook, and the book was incredibly long. It was 400 pages, and I read the book, and a lot of the book is sort of what you'd expect from working at a company like Meta, but Sarah had a unique seat because she was working very closely with the executive team on a lot of international things. The majority of her stories take place on like the private plane with like literally Mark Zuckerberg, Sheryl Sandberg, like she reported into someone named Joel Kaplan, who isn't publicly as well known, but like these are the movers and shakers. And then arguably the most bombshell thing in the book is that she accused both her direct boss and Sheryl Sandberg of sexual harassment against her, notably in a lot of scenes with Cheryl that take place in like a bed on a private plane, all alleged. So, of course, when this book came out, Meta tried to shut it down because not only did they not want the press out there, but also when Sarah had left the company, she had gotten a severance package that said she signed like a non-disparagement clause. Um, and the book was a huge smash commercially. It was number one on the New York Times bestseller list for weeks and weeks and weeks. I honestly think it is still on the bestseller list, although I don't know if it's number one. Multiple printings. And Meta is they've already taken her to court before, but now they're taking her back to court over this book. And she's taking them, saying that like they're hurting her commercial revenue, that she shouldn't have to be for this like non-encouragement clause. And then the most interesting thing I thought from the story today was that Sarah was supposed to be talking on a panel at like a book festival. and she appeared on the panel, but Meta had let her know that they were sending a representative from Meta's legal team to the panel, and she could not talk. So she sat on the panel in front of this audience and did not say a word, which I thought was like so wild and juicy. If I was in the audience, I would have been like having a field day with it. And I really recommend the book. I found it very interesting. I don't think that um it gave me a lot to think about. I think that there's two sides to every story. But what happened to Sarah was very upsetting to Sarah. And I thought it was very interesting, her perspective on it. So I recommend the book, Careless People. But more than that, I feel like that it's like part of a larger conversation about when people leave companies, they often have to sign these NDAs that are saying that we're saying negative about the company. And I just feel like you get into such, like Sarah gave her a significant portion of her career as part of the story. She was having very high risk pregnancies while she was doing these jobs. She's given like a significant portion of her life to this company, and now she's never allowed to talk about it ever. And I don't know, it's just like a very interesting legal challenge. I don't know if she has the strongest case legally. She did sign the clause. Whether or not I think the clause should have existed is another conversation. Like, I'm very intrigued how this is going to play out, honestly.
Here's the scary thing is like when you try to go up against these big companies who have billions and billions of dollars, like ultimately you're going to lose because you're going to lose financially. Like you cannot keep up with them financially.
Yeah.
They're going to come at you again and again and
Right.
again until they drain every single penny you have.
Yep.
And that's really scary because it's a threat. It's a threat that silences you. It's a threat that makes you want to hide. I give her a lot of credit
Yep.
for speaking out about these things because I'm a little bit of a coward. I think I would have kept the stories to myself because I wouldn't have wanted to get in trouble. So I give her a lot of credit for writing this book. However, I don't think it's going to end well for her. I don't.
It's really hard. And also, I'm not giving anything away. This happened in literally the first two pages. But I also always think about the book opens her as like a preteen on a beach in Australia, which is where she grew up, getting attacked by a shark.
This is where I stopped
And
reading the book, by the way. This is the exact time I stopped reading the book because it
it's
was
like the first
so,
page.
but it's so gory. And I was like, I have health anxiety.
It
I
is
don't want
really
to hear
gory.
this. Like, she goes into such gory
I know.
detail about this. I'm going to continue, but like, I just was like
She almost
nauseous.
died.
Yeah,
Well, it's an
yeah.
incredibly long book. Like it's 400 pages. I have something very interesting is like she clearly was on the executive team. I feel like nobody really knows her boss, Joel Kaplan. Sheryl Sandberg is obviously a lot better known from Lean In, but the book really focuses on Joel doing poor behavior. And even though she spent so much time with Mark Zuckerberg, she really didn't have anything like that, quote unquote, that bad to say about him. Like his stories were more like he's a weird nerd, and other people's stories were more like what they're doing is illegal. And I just like found that interesting.
But let me ask you, like, you've had a company before with employees. Would you make them sign an NDA?
That is such a great question. Um,
Let me ask you this: like, you had a pretty big company, but let's say your company scaled even bigger with more revenue, more employees, more secrets, more
yeah. My company and
problems.
Meta were like they were like pretty comparable in size. Like
One
a
and
lot of
two,
people
one and two. Yeah.
I think the challenge is like in my example, everyone that worked in my company worked with me personally. Everyone that works at Meta doesn't work with, I mean, in this case, she worked with the founder, but like it's a huge company, multiple offices. And I do think you're publicly traded. I feel like that there's probably a middle ground where if you take a settlement payout, that maybe you have an NDA, but maybe it runs out eventually. And maybe that's like a 10-year period or something like that. Because I do understand otherwise you get into an area where people are taking the jobs at the company because it's like a hot company just to write some sort of books or something and like leak out those trade secrets. And so I'm not really like a company girl when it comes to NDAs, but I understand where they exist. But I think that they need to be limits for them. And I also think it should be optional to sign them. And you can make the case it's not optional if they're giving you, a huge payout to stop. But like, I don't think it's like an automatic when you come in. Now, trade secrets are different. I do think you have a responsibility to keep like the company information private, but that's different than like your experience at it.
It's
Um,
just so hard
yeah.
because the truth and nonfiction is so personal, and it's hard to know what is real and what is exaggerated and what is simply just based on emotion. You know, everything going on with Alex Cooper and the Unwell Company and the hit piece that they tried to write about her and her husband, you know, it's like, what do you believe and how do you know what to believe? Because when you get fired from a company or you get let go from a company, you're so freaking pissed. And if you would have asked me, like, I got let go of a company many, many years ago. I loved this company, but when they let me go, I was so pissed off at them that if someone would have called me that day and said, tell me like all the bad stuff, I'm sure I would have talked mad shit because I was so pissed. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, right? So it's like the truth is so hard because it's one person's perspective. I don't want to say I don't believe anyone, but how do you know what's true? How do you know what's just exaggerated emotions? Like, it's so hard to know. And that's the thing with an NDA is like, you're basically saying like you just can't talk about your experience here. And I don't know, like if I ran a big company and I had all these employees, I'm sure I'd have some bad days. I'm sure there's things people could say. It jeopardizes your whole company when a hit piece goes out, let alone a book like this. This isn't going to affect Meta's bottom line because they're Meta, but if it was like, you know, a couple levels down.
And I think you can make an argument. The problem is like it's not really you're trying to protect other like it's not necessarily you as a founder. It's like if you're trying to hire big people from other companies to come work at your company, they're going to want that protection because I actually think the person who looks the worst in this story is Sheryl Sandberg. She's the most well-known person that like an accusation of sexual harassment is like a serious accusation. And so I can see a world where Cheryl or like the other leadership that's not you is the one pushing for the NDAs to prevent something like this happening.
But also, my other thing is in the book world, when you write a nonfiction book, and we both have written a nonfiction book, they do their due diligence. Like, I remember every single person I wrote about, every name I used, every location, like, I had to back it up. I had to prove it. I had to show that this was real, and here's how I showed it was real, because they don't want to take a chance of them being legally responsible for you lying. So you have to believe whoever published this book either did it with some type of clause to her, like, hey, we're not responsible if you get sued from this book or whatever, or they did their due diligence and had enough evidence. Like, they weren't going to give her a book deal unless they had some evidence that some of this was true, right?
100%. And like, how do you, I honestly feel like in some cases, the fact that everything is recorded now, like meetings are so much more recorded, is actually better for people that are having negative workplace experiences. Like, unfortunately, a lot of her stories, which are like 2012 to 2017, it's just like here, it's like her word against somebody else, and that's really hard to prove. But if you have a ton of recorded meetings and you can like play them back and you're in a different spot,
Yeah.
honestly. But I just feel it's really hard to go up against a big company. I give her a ton of credit. I hope it works out. I wonder what her end goal is, and I hope it works out the way that she wants.
Yeah, I
I
know,
would
because
love to
like
meet her.
I would love to meet her too. I give her so much credit. I think it's such a tough situation both ways, and I do hope it ends well for her, but I
She's
fear
braver than me, for
she's way
sure.
braver than me. I'm a little baby. I'd be sitting in the room like I'm not going to talk about this to anyone. Because imagine being on a speaking panel and they're sending people to watch you. Like, are you kidding me? My anxiety would cause me to
Be
be
through
in
the
panic.
roof.
Yeah, no thanks. Mm-mm. Speaking of audio, iHeartMedia, one of America's biggest radio companies, just laid off dozens of employees who spent years on the air. There was an on-air host who was there for 19 years who lost their job. The company's restructuring, relying on more technology. It's not necessarily replacing with AI, but it's incorporating more AI into the business. And because of that, they are completely restructuring. It was interesting to me because how many hours a week do you think people listen to actual radio?
It's a lot higher than you think. I think it's like 7 or something.
Oh my God, it's 4, which
Or
is
okay.
interesting because I guess that's like a typical person's commute must be around 2 hours plus, and that's why they're listening to it in the radio. How many hours a day do you think people listen to podcasts on
Oh, that's
average?
such a great question. 2?
One. Close.
Fine.
So
1.
70% of iHeart's revenue comes from actual traditional radio, but the advertising has slowed down a little bit, and the company's in billions of dollars in debt. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen to a big radio giant like that. Obviously, iHeart has tried to do podcasts, and a lot of their podcasts don't necessarily they have a handful that have really carried them and taken off, but then they have a lot of others that don't. You and I know some people who have iHeart radio podcast deals, and I might be wrong, but remember the payment structure of these deals is not very good. Like, I feel like rumor has
Depends
it.
on how much you have coming into it. I feel like if you're well known, yeah, you're getting a good deal. If you're not, it's just a regular deal that's probably like based on listens or something. Okay, but
Yeah.
if you get laid off from iHeartRadio, I feel like your next step is you just go start a podcast on your own.
Well, iHeart has become the largest podcast publisher in the U.S. in terms of audience.
That's
So they're
interesting.
they're giants. I think it's a big deal because it's kind of showing that you need one of these giants to carry you, or do you not? I think you need audience, you need followers, you need listeners. So if these people who got laid off have a strong audience, yeah, they can go ahead and start their own podcast. But you and I both know that generating revenue through a podcast isn't as easy as it sounds. I mean, selling your own ads is not something you're going to do as a host. It's not something you're skilled to do. So is another podcast network going to pick you up? Well, maybe these people who've worked there for so long have NDAs, have clauses where they can't work in the industry
Right.
for X number of years after. So it's kind of tough. I think there's going to be a huge shift in podcasts, in audio. I think the best place to be right now is a podcast that's being picked up by Netflix, because they're picking up all of these podcasts as video talk shows, and I think other streaming platforms are going to catch on to that, because I think like people are watching, they're listening, of course, but they're watching a lot more. So if you were going to start a podcast, I think it has to be something with a video, and like just like we're trying to do.
Trying.
And I think the people who are listening to the radio aren't listening to like the podcast shows. They're listening to songs and some talking, songs, some talking. So they're looking for a different type of experience. And that experience I don't think needs to be changed. But I do think the world of podcasting is going to be interrupted because of giants like Netflix who are taking this to the next level.
Okay, agree. And I also think radio numbers are inflated because I think radio numbers, are similar to how they judge newspaper numbers, which is every time you get a paper, they say the circulation is 2 people. So they're assuming that I'm sharing this with someone else. I think radio shows, which are done by like Edison, I believe, like they're like, oh, anytime it's on the car, there's 2 people in the car. So it's
So
like they're
true.
always like inflating their numbers which is that's hey, we all gotta make a living. However, if I'm getting laid off from iHeartRadio and they've laid off like 20 people, a big benefit of iHeart is they do a ton of cross promotion. I'm starting a group text with the 19 other people that got laid off. I'm saying we're starting a new company. It's called I Hate Radio. We're doing podcasts together, and we're buying an ad seller. They're selling across all of our things, and we're cross promoting. You could, if you had the talent, which you would in theory have, you have somewhat of an audience because people are going to get, and then you can do the cross promotion. You can do if you can do an I Hate Radio together.
It's so true. Create your own little podcast network. That's not a bad idea at all. I think, I don't know, I would leave podcasting altogether and do something with video.
And I also feel like now people say like, is this a podcast or is this a video? Like people call them video podcasts. Like I think I think it's talk shows. People are lonely during the day. People underestimate how lonely people get during the day working from home. You want a familiar voice in your earbuds. Like that's why older folks have CNBC on all day, because it's just like a voice in their ear, or I guess younger folks too. Any folks can, like, you just want a friend. That's why the Today Show is so popular.
And here's my hot take
Yeah.
is traditional podcasting where it's you and someone you're interviewing is kind of dead. It's boring. I mean, some people do it really well, and I listen to some that I love too. But if you're starting a podcast and that's the format you're going with, I think it's a struggle because it's boring. It's repetitive.
Yeah.
It's the same old BS. And if I don't like the person you're interviewing, I'm not going to watch that week. And if 3 weeks go by, I'm going to forget about you. But exactly what you said, this whole talk show model, I think is much better than the traditional podcast, because people like to have background noise of people talking about topics they're interested in, they like. That's more successful to me than this back and forth. So, how did you start your company? Like, it just never comes off genuine anyway.
That's okay. By the way, that's really what we are. We're like a business talk show.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Speaking of people doing better in business than us. Okay. I thought this was very interesting. Front page of the mansion section of the Wall Street Journal today was a guy that has won more than $6 million on sports betting, doing
Ooh.
sports betting on DraftKings specifically. And now he's bought this huge ass, or sorry, this huge home. Sorry, this huge home. Unfortunately, he and his wife are splitting up, and so now the home is on the market. But I thought this was so interesting. Like, if you're working at, like, is this a story that's pitched by DraftKings? Because, like, it makes DraftKings come off so great that this guy, and like all of his quotes were like, well, I'm not really interested in sports, but I am very interested in like lucky and winning.
Yeah.
I mean, $6 million is not, I mean, I'd be interested what his losses are, but like I thought that was very interesting. And then I was like, who's placing this story? Like, I
Oh,
feel like
you're
it is
so
PR from
right.
DraftKings.
Every time I read the mansion section, all I think about is like, how did they find these people? How did they find these stories? And there has to be a PR person pitching most of them, because if not, like, who's rich enough that they're like, I'm going to call the mansion section to talk about my house? Like, there has to be
Me,
PR. Yeah,
click.
I wish. I feel like 1000% you're right about their DraftKings things. I can't stand DraftKings. I can't stand betting. It
Mm.
freaks me out. It makes me so sad because people are losing everything on these apps. They make it so easy to bet on everything. Like the whole poly market
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
People can't control themselves. I'm someone with the most addictive personality. You will never catch me having one of these apps on my phone, on Adam's phone, anywhere in my peripheral vision, because I don't want to be tempted. And stories like this piss me off because you hear, oh, he made $6 million. You're right. You don't hear what his losses are. You
Right.
see, oh, he has a mansion. Oh, he broke up with his wife. He's probably going to find some hot young girl. That's what these guys are thinking reading this. They're
Yeah.
going to go download DraftKings and try to make this money. It pisses me off glamorizing the world of betting.
Completely agree. Also, just to be a little gossipy, something I found very interesting is that his wife is extremely attractive.
Ooh, we love this for her.
I love this for her. I'm like, girl, get half that money and go like do something fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go live
like
your life.
there's nothing wrong with him. He's fine. But like his wife is like Angela Cohen, like please.
I love how they put a picture of her in this. Oh yeah, she's
She the dance
great.
studio. They put extra flooring in the dance studio so she could dance without hurting her knees.
Oh, that's like so
I just feel
sweet.
like Angela, go be free.
Go be
But
free.
I don't know. I'm always skeptical. Like the fact that the headline says winning millions on
No.
DraftKings, like
Mm-mm.
someone's placing that
And
story.
is DraftKings a advertiser of the Wall Street Journal? Maybe.
It's a
I'm
great
sure
question. I'm
online they
sure.
are. I'm sure if you go to their website, you'll see something for DraftKings.
Ding, 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 ding.
Online betting pisses me off like more than anything. I'm scared for people. And I see it everywhere in New York City. You can't go a block without seeing some sort of advertisement for online betting, for poly market, for everything. And I think it's so dangerous for people.
Do you trade stocks?
No.
Mm.
Do you?
I try not to do individual stocks, but sometimes I get a little, very rarely. But like, I try to just do the market, like the S&P 500, those VOO or whatever.
For a person who can't control themselves like me, these types of things, like I'd rather be addicted to like talking to ChatGPT all day than like anything that has to do with, I'm so protective of money and addiction. Like anything where my money gets involved with my like being obsessive about something, I just won't do. Like I'll go to Vegas and I'll play some slot machines, but like I don't have this urge of like let's keep going. Like if I win $10, I'm like that's good enough for me, because it could go the wrong way for a person like me.
Like that. Addiction is really powerful in every sense of the word.
And people don't ever talk about gambling addiction. Like we know there's like alcohol, drug addiction, but gambling addiction is huge. And it's actually probably, I would assume it's climbing up so high in terms of popularity of addictions. But people don't really talk about it as much because the harm isn't physical, it's what happens to your world. You know, with the drinking and drugs, the harm becomes physical, and with gambling, it becomes kind of like out of body in a way.
Totally. But remember, yeah, I've been close to people that have been professional gamblers before, and it is for sure a
But
lifestyle.
professional gambler seems like so glamorous. You're like, oh yeah, I'm a professional poker player. I dated someone who was a professional poker player, and I was like, cute. But then like gambling addict is like, oh shit, a whole
Well, that's the problem
different.
is the
The
line
li-
between like it's like professional stockbroker. Oh, he's a day trader is like a thin line for honestly, I there are definitely people saying I'm a day trader and they're trading things on Polymart
oh,
market.
for sure. Whenever anyone tells me they're a day trader, I'm like,
That's just branding.
yeah, that's like me saying I'm like a best-selling author. Like, I
That's
don't
like me
know.
saying I run a talk show. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. We're so happy that you're here on our talk show.
We love you. We'll see you next week. Okay. No, how come there was no freezing here?
Hold on, I'm still recording.